Hello everybody, it's been a while since I have made a forecast discussion video. It's been over a month, but we're back at it today. We have an active stretch of weather to go over, so let's go over it. The Storm Prediction Center for Sunday, October 23rd has issued a slight risk of severe weather across portions of Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, and South Dakota. This event is not looking that great in terms of overall severe potential, so it's a little bit surprising to see the Storm Prediction Center put out a slight risk for this event. You also have an event across Oklahoma and Texas with a small marginal risk. There is a 2% tornado risk, which also surprises me a little bit, across Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, South Dakota region. Maybe it's there for landspout tornado chances, but the probability of getting good storms is not really that high. You have a 15 wind and a 5 hail as well. Day 3 is when stuff starts to heat up more. We will likely see this marginal risk expand throughout a lot more of Texas. I would not be surprised to see it get like this, and then maybe into Oklahoma as well. This may get upgraded as well. We're expecting the chance for tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds, all as hazards. And day 4, we have a day 4 risk. This is going to be centered across Mississippi, parts of Arkansas, and Tennessee, including Memphis, Tennessee, Jackson, Mississippi, Bartlett, Tennessee, Meridian, Mississippi, South Haven, Mississippi. This may get expanded a little bit further to the south as well as further to the west throughout the next couple of days. It's just all going to depend on kind of how the pattern gets going, but a large portion of Mississippi is in the risk. The hazards are tornadoes, wind, and perhaps some large hail as well. Here's kind of our overall pattern. We have Major Hurricane Roselle, which we probably should talk about as well very briefly. It is currently a Category 4 hurricane with winds of 130 mile per hour and pressure of 995 millibars. Recon is also in the storm, so we can give the recon mission a brief look, and we can see they found pressure of 956 millibars. If we go into the drop zone, about 955, 956 millibars, and winds of around 105 to 110 knots, which supports upper end Category 3, but they might find stronger winds in the northeast Iowa. Going back, we see the hurricane is right off the map there. This is our zone of severe potential tomorrow. We have a big time threat of fire weather as well, which may go extreme at some point across Kansas, maybe into the Texas area, Colorado, Nebraska, as a dry line is going to be focused in there with very strong winds and low relative humidity rates. Day 3, we have a risk of flash flooding and really a huge area of thunderstorms, perhaps a couple stronger storms in this general region as well. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Severe weather again is possible really throughout this general region in Texas. Maybe not the whole area there, but a lot of Texas is going to have the potential for stronger storms. Kind of how it evolves, looks like storms may form Sunday along the dry line. There's a chance of them forming, or the cold front really. Into Monday, we'll likely have storms ongoing there in Oklahoma and Texas. Tuesday morning, we will likely have rain and storms ongoing in Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, and into Kentucky. Rain will likely be ongoing from Canada all the way down to the Gulf Coast. Wednesday, a chance for strong storms will also exist along the cold front, mainly in here. Maybe an isolated wind gust or two, we'll have to see. Thursday, the system moves out, and the pattern becomes more uncertain from there. Looking in the short term, over the next couple of days, so for tomorrow, we are expecting Cape values to be very meager, around 500 joules per kilogram. And already we're expecting 500 or so joules per kilogram building in throughout the evening hours or early morning hours for Monday. You can see this trough is ejecting in. It's kind of poorly timed with the ejection. The ejection happens in the early morning hours. If it happened later, we would have a better chance. There's also this trough that's off the east coast that is preventing moisture return from coming in, which is a needed ingredient for severe weather potential. And we can see moisture is going to be very low with this event. We're only going to see dew points in the upper 50s to perhaps 60 degrees. Dew points will likely be into the mid 60s to low 70s already for that of a Texas event on Monday. Here's a look at the wrap here, and we'll discuss why I think the severe potential is very low. If we take a box sounding across portions of, we'll take it across portions of Kansas and into western Iowa. There is a huge cap and really stable layer. There's a big cap at the surface here, and then there's a huge stable layer from 700 to really the surface, which is precluding really that much instability from forming. And you have a very thin layer of instability from 9 to around 4 or so kilometers, which is going to be between the red and white lines. That's only equivalating to 500 joules per kilogram on the ingredient sheet there. Your lapse rates are kind of steep, and your photograph would definitely favor some severe weather, but you're not really going to get that much. You might see some isolated wind gusts and isolated large hail, but you're really not going to see a big severe chance with this. Now, maybe as we get into the overnight hours, the severe weather threat may increase a little bit. Not really. We still have the same environment. Maybe as we go later into the night, I don't know, maybe it'll increase. Let's see. Well, this is looking like. We'll go smaller box. Across the Missouri River Valley, and I mean, it's not really better. So yeah, I don't really think the severe potential is going to be that high. Now, Monday, it looks like we're going to have severe potential maybe in Canada with 50-degree dew points along the low pressure, but there's also going to be a secondary low pressure that's going to develop probably right around here is where it develops on the wrap, and we have strong moisture throughout the cold front, so we'll probably have a huge marginal with maybe a slight as well, or maybe not a huge marginal, maybe just a area. Pretty big thunderstorm risk. The wrap has a decent environment there in kind of northern Texas and southern Oklahoma for some severe weather, perhaps a brief tornado. We have elongated photographs there and some 3 Cape, but your stable, there's a big stable layer up here precluding better instability values throughout your profile. Already have a decent area of storms ongoing as well. Now moving into other models, here we go. Here's the NAM. So the NAM for this general time has the cold front similarly placed. It has the low pressure a little bit further north, but we also see it has a low pressure kind of forming right around here. This low pressure is going to have a track something like this probably, maybe a little bit more of a curve, but we have dew points already into the 70s, and as we get to 3Z here, this is when that low pressure really starts to get going there, and we can zoom in here, or we can kind of look at the 500 millibar pattern first, and we can see we have a nasty trough here. Shortwave, embedded shortwave within this long wave, so we have a huge long wave trough, and then it embedded in it, in this general region here is our shortwave, which is going to create the severe potential for Monday and Tuesday. Now, it may turn into a cutoff low, or like cutoff low shortwave kind of thing on Tuesday, which will kind of create the severe potential. We have a decent lower level jet as well. We take a sounding kind of right there. We can see the environment isn't too great. It's decent enough for severe weather though. Not the best. Now, if we go a little bit further to the south here, we kind of take a little bit more of an in-depth look. We have our low pressure system generally forming here. We have winds that are kind of, we have a boundary that's set up here, probably our cold front. We have winds that are backing a lot right here. So we have a wind shift kind of in this general region. If we take a box sounding in the wind shift area right there, we can see that our environment favors pretty much every single hazard. We have a column of moderate instability generally in here, which is going to give off enough convective available potential energy for severe weather. We also have 3 Cape values that are going to be decently high because of our because of the 0 to 3 kilometer area in the sounding with decent amounts of instability. We have a strong amount of wind shear and a photograph that is very long and also very, not the straightest, but decently straight. It does kind of veer a little bit, which will cause storms to maybe split, but I think it's going to be more of a linear mode, so it probably really won't do that. Storm motions are probably going to be on the order of 30 to maybe 35 miles per hour or so, maybe a little bit higher initially as your low-level jet isn't as kicked in yet. Low-level lapse rates support the thermodynamics generally getting more steep throughout the column as well. Now, as we get towards 6Z, we start to see the lower level jet really intensify across Texas, and our warm air advection is still moving in. So, we still have surface-based storms. Our photographs get bigger. That'll support more tornado potential. And the tornado potential may be kind of high there in the evening and the early morning hours of Tuesday. As the squall line kind of forms, we can see our photographs are starting to get a lot more favorable for tornadoes. The hail risk is going to start to dwindle down a little bit, though, because our thermodynamics are not going to be so good, and it's not going to be as dry of air in the middle levels as well. As we get toward 12Z, which is the beginning of the next forecast period, we can see this low pressure system is starting to get stronger. We're also starting to get better photographs, and our instability is increasing very slightly. We can see we have a line of storms that has developed with a low pressure center in northeast Texas of 1,002 millibars. Looking at other ingredients early in the morning based off the NAM, we have instability values upwards of 1,000 joules per kilogram there. Our lower level jet is starting to increase to 50 to 60 knots there. And we also have 500 millibar flow of 60 knots or so. As we get toward 18Z, we see this 500 millibar system really start to take shape and start to kind of turn into more of a cutoff low. It's still a short wave at this point. We can see this is kind of the general area of where our storms are probably going to be at this point. They're probably going to be entering Mississippi and Louisiana, Arkansas. And we can see we have dew points in the 70s and 60s with a relatively large warm sector via the NAM. We have, if we take a box sounding across Louisiana here, we can kind of dissect it here. A pretty large photograph is there. We also have 3 Cape values of 130 joules per kilogram. And we also have decent lapse rates. Not the best, but it'll get the job done. And we can see our instability is a little bit more skinny on the sounding than the sounding in Texas, but it's still not terrible. And we can see our wind shear is pretty strong as well. As we get into towards the night, we can start to see the low pressure system is going to deepen even more. It's around 998 millibars now or so. 1,000 actually, so it's 1,000 millibars at this point. And with it being this close to the warm sector, that's going to really play a role. If we take a sounding kind of ahead of the line, we can see shear and other parameters start to get really maximized, especially our low-level shear. We have a very large photograph here. If we look at the low-level shear values, they're starting to get to 50-plus knots across the warm sector, nearing 60. If we take a box sounding across the northern part of the warm sector here, we can see our wind shear values are just really starting to increase. Now, looking at other models, we have the Euro, which is now loading in, and we can see that the Euro is also showing a nasty trough signature as well. Now, it is a little bit faster moving than some of the other models, so it projects the warm sector more over Alabama. It also has a cold core setup further north, which I probably should have talked about on the NAM, but maybe some wind gusts and some hail up there with that cold core setup, but I don't think the low-level shear is going to be large enough for tornado potential across that area. Your low pressure is also stronger on the Euro run, but it's also more further north, so your better dynamics will be over more areas in like northeast Arkansas and Tennessee, where your instability may not be as greater. Still, our lower level jet is still quite strong across northern Mississippi, which is where tornado potential will definitely be there, across the afternoon hours there. And we can see here, instability values in the Euro are not as high as some of the other models. We can see they get to around 1,000 joules per kilogram. And here, if we zoom in, we can see a sounding in eastern Mississippi here. It's not the best. You don't have the best lower level dynamics, and I think the Euro may be the solution that's kind of the lowest on this event right now. The last run of the Euro looked a lot more favorable. The 0-6Z run and the 0Z run looked a lot better than this run did. So we can see with the 0-6Z run, we see the low pressure is further to the south than the run that we have right now. The system is also a little bit further to the west, which would favor more severe potential. And I'm pretty sure the low-level jet was also stronger. Let's see. It wasn't much stronger. It was around the same. I think the main thing is the moisture. The GFS generally has the same idea as some of the other models here. We can see we have a squall that starts to form in the evening hours of Monday. And then we have here the same general signature. It's pretty similar to the NAM. The GFS is very similar to the NAM, in fact, except the NAM has a little bit slower with the event. We can see though we have a very good swath of upper 60s to low 70s of dew points here. I think the GFS and DAM have a better idea of the moisture than the Euro. The Euro typically underdoes moisture with events that I've seen, and also underdoes instability. It looks like Mississippi is probably going to be the state that's going to be the most under the gun with this event as well. Taking a sounding there in kind of north central Mississippi as well, we can see a very large hodograph, especially kind of throughout the upper levels. Or lower levels are decently enlarged. We have enough instability as well created that we would see severe potential as well. Kind of moving into the UK Met here, it's got the same general idea as all the other models, a stronger low pressure system, dew points into the mid-set or upper 60s, lower 70s, and we can take a sounding there in north central Mississippi and get a large hodograph with modest instability. So it's looking like the shear vectors on this event, we're going to have kind of the storms move like northeast, which would usually favor discrete action, but since the front is going to be progressing very fast and the warm sector is small and there's already going to be a squall ongoing from the previous day, we're likely going to have a QLCS storm mode. Now, this won't discount the fact that we could see embedded supercells within the line, which is very much a possibility because of the vectors. Now, here's a look at the GEFS. We can see the system really develop on the GEFS and get stronger and then weaker as it goes along. We have a belt of 70 knots of flow that gets projected across that area. And going into the Southern Plains region here, we can see that most models show a max of around 90-80 knots with the system, but it's uncertain where that's going to land, which is why the projections aren't so good. Instability on every single ensemble member. I can tell you this ensemble member probably won't happen. That's a no solution, but every single other one looks... and probably this one too, but other than those two model ones, every single other solution has a chance of happening. We have most of them show surface-based cape of 500 to 1,000 joules per kilogram, and this isn't even at the max time of convective instability. The max is going to be around 21Z this time of year, so we'll probably have values of around 1,000 joules per kilogram of surface-based cape, which is enough. And we have about a 20 or 30% chance at 18Z already of convective values of 1,000 or so. Mean supercell composite is a 1 or so, a 1 to 2 across Mississippi. The max is a 5. Ensemble members, anyone with a yellow is going to have an X through it, so we have a lot of members that show yellow across the map. It's just uncertain on where the highest parameter space is going to exist. Some have it over Louisiana, some have it over Mississippi, some have it Louisiana, or some have it over Mississippi and Alabama. One has it over Arkansas with the cold core. So we have, let's see here, 4, 8, 13. So about 15 out of the 20 members, so that's... I gotta do some math here. That's 15 out of 20 of the members have a decent environment across the region. That's going to equivalent to about 3 out of 5, which is 60%. So 60% of the ensemble members show a decent environment across the region. I might have done the math wrong. It's actually 75%. Sorry, I did the math terribly. But yeah. So, looking into the Euro again, we can also see kind of how the event has trended as well. At least on the Euro. The event over a couple days ago wasn't really looking like it was going to have that much moisture return, and then all of a sudden it trended toward having a lot more. So, here's a look at the model trend on the Euro. We'll just look at this over the past couple of days at 21Z. So we can see here the event got picked up on the Euro sometime yesterday. You can see before that it didn't look very favorable, and then all of a sudden it slipped a switch yesterday. Now we're starting to get a lot more certainty of an event. Here's again the same thing with the GFS. The GFS from the start has actually shown the event, but it's been a lot more uncertain with it. But over the past couple of days, it's kind of confined it and started to become more certain with it. That's gonna do it for this one though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.